These guys survived the David Kahn era of Timberwolves basketball and live to tell about it. It's Flagrant Howls.
I mean, the maturity comes when you stack performances like this on top of each other. So that remains to be seen. But this was a great, focused effort. Executed everything that we talked about really well at a high level. Defensively, I thought Rudy and Jaden McDaniels were outstanding and kind of set the tone there. And, offensively, we did what we had to do when we had to do it to take advantage of where we thought we could take advantage of. So,
Finchy.
I told you, Finchy Basketball Solutions. It's the next big thing in Finchies.
We have a business proposition for Chris Finch here, actually. This is Flagrant Howls, by the way, your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. Our guy Kyle, who would normally be on the Thursday episode, he's traveling. He's enjoying his time, hopefully, in Scottsdale. So we got Judd and Dex here, and I have for you guys 8 Wolves observations we will get to from last night's game.
Can we also get Judd, because we know we've made the comparisons of Chris Finch and Judd having the same looks, mannerisms, and whatnot. Can we also get Judd the quarter zip Wolves? Because if he has the glasses on right now, yes. The last step, Judd, we got to get you a Christmas for Christmas or something, a Wolves quarter zip, and then you have to just have the stats in front of you. You have to do Flagrant Howls.
XXL, please. But down. Yes, I'll do it in a second. Yep.
Look a little bit disheveled and
have your hair
mildly annoyed.
Yeah.
Run my hand. So. And look at the stats look, he looks to me like a high school English teacher.
Yeah. Yes.
Because he never
the
really
cool
looks like
English teacher.
Yeah,
he's got the
trendy glasses,
Yeah.
Yes. He's got a wife that knows how to dress him or something.
Yeah. And before you start, I would like to replace Kyle on one thing. I came home last night to watch the game. Dawn had the main TV, which is fine. You know why? Because I've got Xfinity, so I could go on the Bally Sports app, which I get, right, and watch the game. Second consecutive game that you can't. This is freaking Timberwolves. Seriously.
Coming up next, a login screen that just blinks and does nothing.
This is ridiculous.
You can't even cancel it because the whole app doesn't work at all. So, you can't even get to your account to cancel, which is what I tried to do last night.
We went bankrupt about 10 months ago and fired our technical staff. Hey!
I don't think you're wrong. But I mean,
how is that problem not fixed in the second quarter of the first game that it's happening?
And
Let
I guess
alone
it's a problem.
3 days later, dude. It's insane.
And I tweeted about this last night, and I got tweets back that said this is not a Timberwolves Bally. This is like a Bally problem for other.
This is a Sinclair problem.
the
Sinclair
whole
owns
thing.
Bally Sports North, right?
It's ridiculous.
It's all of them. And so I kind of wondered. I was tweeting up a storm last night. I felt like it doesn't feel like many people are watching. It's the Wolves in Denver, man. There's probably some fringe Wolves fans who are like, no one cares about basketball in November, but people do. This was an interesting matchup, and I found in the responses nobody could watch the game because their app has been broken for 72 hours.
Now I've got cable. So I went upstairs and watched it. But the fact is, there's a lot of people like Declan and younger in their 20s who want to watch the damn product and can't. And this is, I don't care that I can ultimately watch it. This is your fan base. People in their 20s are probably some of your most important fans.
And this is a good segue into observation number 1. All right. I have 8 observations, so strap in here.
I love it. I'm just saying I was pissed off. It's ridiculous.
And I am too, because my first observation is a hot take in that I've been watching Timberwolves regular season basketball since 1991. I remember watching the 1991 season, Pooh Richardson. It was the year before they drafted Christian Laettner, and then they were pretty miserable for a few years, and then KG. So I've been watching 32 years of Wolves regular season basketball. That was a top 10 regular season win last night for the Wolves, and nobody could watch it if you were trying to stream. The atmosphere, the upper deck had some empty sections. People need to get into the flow of Wolves basketball here, but so I'm trying to think of that list. I don't have the whole list of 10, but beating Michael Jordan for the first time in 1997, I believe.
97, yes.
I think Pippen was out that game, but it's the first time they beat.
Game.
You were at that game.
I was 4 years old. It's one of my earliest core memories. I was 4 or 5 years old. This is that was 97, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So I was probably about to turn 5 or maybe 5 years old, but it's one of my earliest memories in my bank.
Dude, I was watching on TV, and I feel like, I'm pretty sure confetti fell from the ceiling of Target Center after that win.
Yeah, during
We reviewed it.
pandemic, Phil and I did the review and talked about that.
Yep.
The confetti fell. Yes, that's one.
I would say like there's been a couple wins over like the Shaq Kobe Lakers here and there, or like there was a win over the Warriors, I feel like a couple years ago. So I don't have the full list, but they drubbed the defending champion Nuggets last night. It was not a close game from the first 2 minutes. It was super impressive.
So the top of that list is probably the game 82 win against the Nuggets, right, to make the playoffs.
Because that is a regular season game. So
that's a regular season game. And that, I think, caused this whole – I think that was a main driver of the play-in thing, because, that game was so much fun.
Yeah.
But, yeah, what I saw was really impressive. Like, nice bounce back.
It
now,
was.
As they said, consistency is going to be key, but that's a nice bounce back.
Yep, and that's actually where that'll be a segue into the second observation from that clip Declan play. But it was kind of interesting, and I don't blame fans at all for this, because you've seen way too many blown 20-point leads. I think they took a 9-0 lead in the first. The Nuggets didn't score until like the 8-minute mark of the first quarter, and the Wolves were up 9-0. Nuggets called timeout, and you could feel like an excitement, but it was very much a nervous excitement. And then they're up by 20. It's the third quarter, and you knew the Nuggets were going to make some kind of a run, because they just, Jamal Murray was like 0 for 9 in the first half. But there's a feeling, and you guys know it. You know it in every Minnesota sports venue, and you felt this in the third quarter last night, where the whole first half is a celebration. They're moving the ball around. They're playing elite defense. They're up by 21 points in the third, and that lead goes from 21 down to like 14 or 15. And it's this doom and gloom hush of inevitability that everyone just gets a little tighter in their chair, is a little bit more nervous. And it wound up, they took the punches and they were scoring. Mike Conley was delivering big shots, and Naz Reed came in with the second unit. And we'll talk about Rudy Gobert, but you knew that run was coming. The Wolves absorbed it, unlike the Atlanta run, which got out of hand. It was like a 60-20 run against Atlanta. So that was I'm just saying, like, that's one of the more impressive regular season wins I can remember watching Wolves basketball.
And at least it didn't get down to like 4-2, right? I think it got down to 13, but that's fine. Like, that's not great, but that's fine.
Happen. It's the NBA.
Right.
Yeah, you're
right. That's exactly.
Nuggets. Yeah.
There's a difference between a team that, because there's going to be runs, there's a difference between a team that has sort of like an NBA ordinary run against it and a Timberwolves run.
Yeah, right.
Which is, oh my God, now we're down by 10.
There's going to be like 7-point swings, 10-point swings. In Wolves games, there's 35-point swings. Just, whoa, this is crazy. Observation number 2, Declan played the clip off the top, but observation number 2 is, despite the impressive nature of that win, Chris Finch wasn't really all that impressed, or at least he wasn't showing it in the post game, because the first question there was, hey, you guys learned from your mistake in that last game. Are you impressed with the maturity of hanging out of that 20-point lead against the defending champions? And you heard the quote from him, but to summarize the whole thing, he basically said, it was fine, but do it again. Again.
Herbie.
Very Herb Brooks-like. Maturity comes when you stack performances like this on top of each other. And I agree, like, it's a building block, but the biggest problem for this team last year, and why they were stuck in Play-in-ville land again, is because they either would lose a bunch of games to bad teams, or they would blow 15 and 20-point leads in the second half in games that should be over. And last night they found a way on both ends of the court to prevent that from happening, but it can't be. You can't now give it up 4 times in the next 5 games that you have a big lead.
So I like Finch's approach so far, because I think the fact that he, rightfully so, didn't go over the top last night in his praise, it's sort of the payback or the exchange for the fact that he didn't go nuts after the Hawks loss. Like, he could have melted down. That was brutal. And he really kept his calm. And he's like, there were some things, and we're going to work on them. But I like the even keel, especially in an 82-game season when you're, 4 games into it or something like that. So I think the trade-off of, I'm not going to get too excited about that win, but I also didn't melt down after the Hawks loss is a very fair trade-off.
Yep. Melting down after the Hawks loss, I think, would have been tone deaf for two reasons. One, you're showing panic 3 games in, which is bad. But also, like, some of this is on Chris Finch. We did a pie chart of blame for the 20-point losses in recent Wolves history on the last episode. And I think I had 4 slices. I gave 25% to Finch, sort of ambiguously, because you don't know for sure. Now, Kyle made a good point. They did call 2 very timely timeouts in the third quarter, just to, hey, you know, the lead goes from 21 down to 16, timeout. You know, okay. And then it goes from like 16 down to 13, timeout. But this was like over the course of maybe 7 minutes, and the Wolves were punching back. But it's not as much about, as Kyle pointed out, it's not as much about his unwillingness to call timeout. Sometimes he does go Phil Jackson on it, where he's like, hey, we got Conley out there. I got Gobert. I got guys who played in 80 playoff games. They should know how to fix this in a regular season game. So I do think sometimes he goes a little too far with trying to be Phil Jackson in those moments. But, you know, whatever he's saying in some of these huddles or at halftime, last night it wasn't as much of an issue. But some of this is on Finch. So I think he kind of knew that after the third game. Observation number 3. The Wolves defense, when they decide to, can clamp any team in the NBA. So according to Automatic NBA Twitter account, kind of an analytics statistical account, the Denver Nuggets were held to a 90.1 offensive rating tonight against the Timberwolves. That's their lowest single game offensive rating in the 2020s regular season and playoffs. And it wasn't they were just missing shots. You know, there's been some Wolves games where the opponent just can't hit the broadside of a barn. Everything felt contested, and, you know, Gobert playing sort of off Jokic and coming over as a help defender was super effective. But also worth noting, the Wolves currently, after 4 games, lead the NBA in scoring defense and also in defensive rating per 100 possessions. So the Hawks' second half got out of hand, but the other quarters that they've played have been clamps defensively so far.
So I thought the game story that Chris Hine did in the Star Tribune today was actually great, because it basically focused on Cat's role and how they matched him up on Joker, and Gobert sort of played more of a safety net, so he wasn't the main guy on Joker, and McDaniels was absolutely huge.
Yeah.
But if you think about that, if you can maximize Cat in a role like that, and he does it, it's going to make a world of difference, because nobody's ever questioned like Cat's talent and Cat's abilities. What they've questioned is his mental state, right? So it makes, and that is a credit to Finch as well, and the defensive orchestration. The fact that because you ordinarily, I think, would think, well, it's probably going to be Gobert, and you just hope that Cat can score. Well, Cat's struggling to score. So I will say this, credit to the Wolves for a game plan that actually worked well. And I don't think that you can underestimate what Jaden McDaniels means as well, defensively.
And it's they implemented that plan too successfully in the playoff series against the Nuggets, where, you know, sometimes they would have Gobert on Joker, but it seems like they found something. Now the Nuggets are probably going to react, and they're going to make some adjustments because they're one of the smartest teams in the NBA. But another thing about Gobert too. So you mentioned, you know, him kind of roving around. Him roving around is so effective because he can sort of decide when and where he wants to try to block a shot or alter a drive into the lane. If you look at just the box score, you say, wow, Gobert was 0 for 7 last night. He had 12 rebounds. That's fine. You know, it's certainly not his biggest rebounding game. Had a couple of blocks. You'd kind of say, that's all right. It was fine last night. But it's another one of those games where if you just watch it, I can't tell you how many times he would blow up a drive to the rim. Like somebody would start, all right, there's 10 seconds left on the shot clock, and Jamal Murray would start to drive the lane, and there's Rudy Gobert. I'm going to dribble back out. Now I'm going to throw it out to the wing, and now there's 4 seconds left to shoot. Just how many times he alters what you're trying to do without it being a block or a rebound or something you can quantify on the stat sheet. It was one of those games for him last night. The first 4 games looks a lot more like the Utah Rudy Gobert than we saw at any point last year, I feel like.
To put it as simply as possible, it looks to me like he is very certain of what his role is and what the expectation is. Like a year ago, you could see him, especially before Cat got hurt in Washington, you could sort of see the gears for both of them grinding as far as what should I be doing. And Gobert would try to do some things that he is famous for, but you could see that there was not a comfort there. When I've watched the Wolves so far this season, I think across the board, Gobert looks entirely comfortable now with what the ask is. And again, to go back to what I said a couple of days ago, he's never going to look like, it's never going to look like, oh man, this trade is a great trade now. Gobert is turning into like this player he's not. The Wolves knew exactly what they were getting, and I feel like what we're seeing now is the Gobert. And to your point, Phil, yes, guys now don't come in the lane. We saw that a little bit last year, but I don't think like this consistently. And the block on Joker last night was gorgeous.
Oh my God. There was also a play.
I mean, that's a hell of a player.
Yes. There was also a play. I believe it was Gobert. Gobert went up. He was going up for a dunk, and Jokic came around and like tried to swat the ball and like literally just came down forearm on forearm. It was the most obvious textbook foul. And Joker puts his hand up, like, oh, yep, my bad. And everyone in the arena is looking over at the official, number 45. I remember because he was getting taunted by the fans. He was the only one in the arena that didn't see it and that didn't see, it's pretty rare that an NBA player's like, yep, that's me. And nothing. So there was a couple, and I don't want to like make a big deal out. The officiating was odd last night. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah, it was being complained about.
But
Jim Pete tweeted about it too.
Okay.
Yeah,
but there was a few moments like that where Gobert would have had a dunk, or there. I would say if we could do a segment within a segment here, a pie chart of Rudy Gobert's comfort in his second year so far. Only 4 games, but I think having a full year in the new city with your new teammates in the system, like all of that makes a difference. I think another slice would be Mike Conley in place of D'Angelo Russell, a guy that he's familiar with from his previous stop. And a guy that, like, Mike Conley is looking to actively engage teammates. D'Angelo Russell was always a little too cool for school, right? Oh, Gobert can't catch a pass. I'm going to make fun of him in the locker room or to the media, as opposed to, well, what can I do to tap into this resource, this 7-foot monster that, yeah, maybe he doesn't have great hands, but you know what? Like, he's still valuable. Mm-hmm. And then I think the other slice would be Anthony Edwards is much more actively looking to get the ball to Gobert under the rim. Now, again, he went 0 for 7 last night, but they were throwing in passes in there, and he was getting to the line. He should have gotten to the line more often. So we'll see. It's 4 games. But we'll see. Judd, you mentioned Karl. So here's my 4th observation. Karl. Switch. I think here's my observation on Karl. He did a great job avoiding a total meltdown in that game. This was a classic sort of like could have gone 50-50 either way with him, and we've seen it where the energy is it's an electric atmosphere. It's one of the best teams in the NBA. You got one of your big rivals coming in Jokic, right? Like everything is heightened, and he does the classic cat thing where he picks up 2 early fouls. And of course, there's always going to be a debate with any of Karl's fouls, like those weren't fouls. I'm getting screwed, right? And he's flailing his arms and stuff. But
I saw plenty of that.
He picks up the 2 early fouls, and we've seen when once that happens, we've seen a lot of games where he's just a non-factor. Mm-hmm. He comes back in, picks up a 3rd foul, then he comes back in, and he winds up shooting 4 for 12 with, 5 fouls in 25 minutes or something. Last night, to his credit, and there were some questionable non-calls on him. He was getting hammered in the paint a couple times and did not get the benefit. So I will side with him on some of those. He bounced back, man. He played good defense on Jokic pretty much all night. He scored some key buckets when they needed in the 3rd quarter, 4th quarter. So I will give Karl credit. That felt like a situation where he could have played himself right out of the game in the 1st quarter, and he put his head back in, and he figured it out.
Let me say this about him last night, because I think that this is actually, this is not going to be a surprise, but I think what we saw last night, though, was one of the important things, despite the 2 early fouls, as you brought up, was this. He knew what his role was. Like, I think a lot of the Karl confusion to me is not our confusion. It's Karl's own confusion, right? About what's your job tonight. Are you supposed to be a scorer, facilitator? And I mean, the frustrating thing is he has the God-given ability to do whatever, for the most part, he wants physically. Mm-hmm. But I think last night, knowing his role actually probably helps him. Because he had clearly a defined role last night.
Finch commented on that too, kind of unprompted. Somebody asked him about Cat and just kind of the game that he had, and Finch went out of his way to talk about this was an all NBA player, third team all NBA player before Gobert came along. And we asked an all NBA player to switch positions basically and play next to a 7'5". And and Finch said verbatim, he's still trying to figure that out. And you could take that however you want. Like, you could take that as, why is he still trying to figure it out? Like, dude, it's basketball, figure it out, right? But there is, I think, and because he missed 50 plus games too, I don't think we should. And I've been as hard on Cat as pretty much anyone. We shouldn't discount the fact that he's only in terms of regular season. What did he play? 30 games. So he's played like 35 games in this new world. 40 if you count the playoff series. Mm-hmm. So he's a half season in, even though he's like a year and a half in or a year in. He's basically a half season into playing this new position. Before we get to observations 5, 6, 7, and 8, let's talk about our friends Finch Home Solutions. Not Chris Finch, not yet anyways. His distant relative somewhere, if you go back far enough, Cody Finch. Cody Finch, our friend.
Look at that beautiful van right there. Exactly right. So Chris Finch, as mentioned at the top of the show, he has basketball solutions. But Cody Finch, my guy, huge Vikings fan, loves them, is optimistic, hopeful. He has Finch Home Solutions for any electrical issues. While basketball is important, guess what? The electrical issues in your home are far more important, because protecting your home and your family is the most important thing in life. And Finch Home Solutions can do exactly that. In fact, they can do small work, install an outlet, something that simple. It'll be quick. It'll be fast, efficient, courteous. They can rewire your entire house. And look, again, the electrical issues in your home are some of the most important things. They are protecting your home. So if there's any questions, if there's any problems, Finch Home Solutions is where you want to go. They've been into Sports Dad's house. Very few people get into Sports Dad's house, but guess what? They came in, they did a great job. They would be, unlike Declan, well, I have not had Dex in my house yet, but they would be invited back because they are that good. 612-357-2604, FinchHomeSolutions.com. Their site has been redone. It's easy to navigate. FinchHomeSolutions.com. Go on there, schedule an appointment if you need something for your home. I'm going to tell you right now, again, they're going to show up. They're going to do the job. That's because Cody Finch has the solutions for any electrical issues in your home.
Yeah, just like Chris Finch had the solution to the Denver Nuggets last night. The Nuggets were very complimentary post-game too, just talking about that's a good basketball team, and they've given us problems. And we heard some of the talk after the championship run, and they were looking back, and a couple of those Nuggets rotation players are saying the Wolves gave us the toughest series of all the teams we faced 2 months of playoffs. Observation 5 from last night. Anthony Edwards said something interesting. This is from our guy Dane Moore NBA podcast. So Anthony Edwards was asked in the locker room what the Wolves need to do to stay consistent. And Anthony Edwards said this, quote, "Starting with myself, just can't come out being selfish, worrying about however many points I want to score. Just playing within the game, playing within the flow. I think that's the main thing with me. I'm worried so much about scoring and how many points I got and how many points I'm trying to get, instead of just worrying about the little things, rebounding, boxing out, getting back on D. So tonight, I wasn't really worried about scoring. I was just worrying about what we can do to win the game. So I think if I come out with that mentality of not worrying about points, we'll be all right." He still got like 25 points in that game last night. But it's probably an interesting conundrum when you're in your early 20s, you're physically maturing into one of the most unstoppable forces in the NBA. You know that you can get your shot off wherever you want to, and balancing sort of the ego and all of the stuff that goes into wanting to drive your car as fast as you can with what's the winning play.
Right.
And, I mean, Kevin Garnett was great at that. I mean, Kevin Garnett, if he wanted to, could have scored 30 points a night any season in his career, right? And almost to a fault sometimes, KG would go into a game looking to get everyone else going. He would defer to teammates on final shots and whatnot. So striking that balance is going to mean sometimes the Wolves need Anthony Edwards to go into Kobe mode. But they're playing at their best when there's a couple times last night where like they're trying to get the ball moving. Here we go. Bang, bang, bang. It comes to Edwards, top of the key, and it stops. It gets sticky, as Chris Finch would say.
Don't like the stickiness.
And he's good enough sometimes to be sticky, jab, step, boom, and he knocks down a shot. But in general, the whole thing is better when he is involved with keeping the ball moving. And then when the ball comes back to him, lo and behold, there's a wide open lane for a dunk or a wide open three, right? So he's if he works within the flow, he's still going to score 25 points like he did last night, and they're going to win.
Two things come to mind about this. First of all, I think Ant definitely means what he says, but I think it's one thing to say it. Like Ant clearly knows he's not delusional. He knows exactly what he should and can do, right? I think it's sometimes, to your point, Phil, it gets difficult for him, though, to actually practice what he's preaching. And so, like, that's the next step. But the other thing is, and this is the thing about consistency, and it alludes back to something that we touched on briefly before, is the Denver Nuggets beat you in the playoffs. They won the NBA championship. Getting up for them is easy. Like, that's not hard, right? Like, you're coming off the Hawks game, which was a disaster. You come home, start of a 4-game homestand. You're playing the defending champs. It's not hard to say, okay, guys, we're going to make a statement. We're going to come back tonight and prove that the Hawks game was not who we are. What I want to see now, though, is all of this and all of the talk about consistency and what guys have to do. I want to see that carry over into Wednesday night games against bad teams.
Which
like that's the mature.
Like they should be hungry. None of these guys have won titles.
I know, but I think it's a mental. I think it's a mental thing, and I think like you play the defending champs, and you are like, yeah, especially at home, yeah, let's go, let's prove this, and good for them last night. They probably did. Yeah. But when you're gonna face the Detroit Pistons on a Wednesday night in an empty arena in Detroit, can you come out and have this same sort of consistency? To me, that's what a championship team does. And that's the difference between, like, that's a pretty good team. It's a pretty talented team. And no, that's just a flat out good team.
You know what the motivation should be is if you can get out in front by 20 points like last night and you can carry that through the third quarter, guess what happens with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter? Denver waves the white flag and puts their bench players in. Now, the Wolves left their starters in for like 3 minutes because, they still don't trust themselves with a 20-point lead. But like that should be the goal, let's make tonight. We're going to play the Pistons tonight. We need some extra motivation. Here's the motivation. Rest all starters in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. Be up by 24 points going into the fourth quarter and put some ice on our knees and some ice on our backs and towels on our heads with 10 minutes left in the game.
I found the game for you. It's going to take a while, but I found the game.
The schedule's tough, yeah.
Wednesday, January 17th at the Pistons, 6 p.m. local time start here, okay? I want you guys to come out and show the same fire and consistency that you did on a Wednesday night against the defending champions at home.
So we got to wait
the game
2 months.
You got to wait 2 months for a really, really crappy game because that's the type of game that to me is going to be the have you really matured game.
Yeah. Observation number 6. Jokic is the weirdest NBA superstar I can remember in terms of just being unorthodox. We've seen him play at this level now for a few years, but when you watch him in person too, it's just so much more magnified. He looks exhausted 3 minutes into every game. He's lumbering, he's huffing, puffing, he's got red scratch marks everywhere. He's just bitching at the refs while he trudges around. Yeah.
Like he's a beefy human.
But he just dude, he looks, the game starts there's 9 minutes left in the first quarter and he's drenched in sweat and breathing heavy every night. Like they're winning the title. And despite this, he's putting up 28. Last night he put up, I think he only had like 3 or 4 assists. It wasn't like a typical Jokic game because the Wolves did a great job on him. But it's kind of amazing. You just, if you didn't know anything about him and you just watched him play, and someone said, do you think that guy is one of the best players in the NBA? You'd say, I don't know how that could be possible. He can't jump over a phone book, but he gets it done, man. It's the greatest old man game in the history of the NBA.
The simplest explanation that I can come up with to what you just said is when you watch Jokic, the skill set makes no sense.
And dude, he gets like his shots get contested all the time in the lane, and he finds a way to just like flip the ball around Rudy's hand
and the height of his shots can be incredible.
Yes.
But
a lot of arc,
but like his passing ability, like the skill set doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's old man game, man. It is the most refined and
so good,
effective old man game in the history of the NBA. Observation number 7, Jaden McDaniels was excellent last night doing Jaden McDaniels things. Now he gets a little like, anger management has been kind of a problem for him. Like at one point I think it was Jamal Murray. He shoved Jamal Murray and picked up a flagrant, like as Jamal was going for a layup. But he was a huge reason why Jamal Murray started 0 for 9 last night, and the Nuggets couldn't get a point for a while. He also had 9 rebounds in the game, so he's been more active as a rebounder here, at least in that game last night. It's only the 6th time in his career that he has snagged 9 or more rebounds in a game. 6 times.
That's interesting.
And you watch him; he's like 6'9". He's super athletic, right? And one of the nitpicks that Chris Finch has about this team is it's not big man rebounding; it's everyone else rebounding. So you've seen Anthony Edwards make a concerted effort with 14 rebounds in the first game. You saw last night Jaden McDaniels with 9 rebounds. They need the Anthony Edwards, they need that sort of second layer of the players who aren't 7 feet tall to be collecting more rebounds. So if all of a sudden Jaden McDaniels, in addition to shooting threes, and he can also get shots off, if he's given opportunities to, if he's going to be grabbing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rebounds more often, big game changer.
I'm not encouraging him to punch walls because that's just stupid. But I will say this for his edge. He's the type of guy I don't think you want to take his edge away, because I like the sort of chip on his shoulder play. Like, I don't want him getting stupid texts and things like that. I'm not trying to say that. But I also don't want to diffuse him completely. Yeah. Because I think part of his success is sort of this FU that he brings to his defensive game. And I really like that part of it.
Yep. And it was a good sign. That was the first, I guess, Atlanta, but so this is the second time they've run their actual starting lineup out. And to get off to that hot of a start, because the biggest thing we're watching for is with a pretty inflexible starting lineup, there's not a lot of changes to be made. Like 4 of the 5 guys almost have to start, and Jaden McDaniels should also start. So it's kind of, this is your starting 5. And to get out to the hot starts they have now in 2 games, including against the defending champions, it's a good sign as you're looking to see that starting 5 can't just be a break-even starting 5 and then your bench gets out in front. Like, you have to be able to take leads on teams and then do it again in the second half. And they were all like plus 10, plus 20 in that starting lineup last night.
Mm-hmm. I liked Michael Grady's line of Afro Thunder towards him in the Atlanta game on Monday. I don't know if you guys saw that, but
I did.
Loved the nickname Afro Thunder. Also a great, I think he might be was it Ready to Rumble? It was a great N64 boxing game back in like the early 2000s, and I thought maybe he stole it from that as well. But in general, when he's on the court, it just makes their life a lot easier. Their defense has more energy. And I think everyone's still waiting for his offense to, take the next step, but all the things he brings on the back end of the court, I think, are always worth it. And whether he gets to that offensive ceiling, he breaks the glass ceiling, that'll be great. But I think his defensive prowess, just having his presence on the court, makes a humongous difference.
Yeah, the fact that you can just put him on like Jamal Murray,
Oh, yeah.
or Kyrie or Luka.
Yep.
You can just kind of put him on whoever you want to. And then my 8th and final observation, it was a lot of things to observe last night at Target Center. It's quite simply Naz Reed. Dude, the roof blows off Target Center every time that dude makes a basket. Every time he checks in, he gets the loudest ovation of anyone on the roster. He was a major factor in staving off Denver's run in the second half. He's scoring in the post at will. He's a high percentage three-point shooter. He's been great running the floor. He's always been an energy player, but we're just seeing like a fully realized version of Naz Reed here in the 20 plus minutes that he gets. And it's good to see that you can kind of use him with Rudy Gobert effectively now too this season. We'll see if that continues, but Naz Reed feels like an even better version than he was last year. And I think he's probably number 1 on the fan favorite power rankings, even ahead of Anthony Edwards right now. It's kind of crazy.
I love that point. That's great. Good for the fans.
So there you go. 8 Wolves observations for you guys here on Flagrant Howls. By the way, if you guys could click the like button and the subscribe button on the Score North YouTube channel so we can keep growing this thing. So many awesome Minnesota sports fans that have jumped on board here over the past couple of years. And on the Flagrant Howls podcast feed on the Apple and Spotify pages, you can give us a 5-star rating and a positive review, which also helps grow the Timberwolves Lifestyle podcast here.
Bally's, get this fixed. Come on, you idiots. Get this fixed. And the Wolves got to jump in, too. Any team that's with these clowns has to jump in.
Dude, it's
Jim, Pete, and Grady deserve to be heard by anyone that wants to watch or who pays to watch their games. Come on.
It's embarrassing. And it's funny because it's not even Bally's. That's the naming rights.
Yeah, true.
If
Diamond Sports Group, Sinclair.
Diamond Sports Group, Sinclair.
But the Wolves, too. The Wolves are now culpable, too, because, we're now 2 games into, do something.
Yeah, and if you're Bally's, you're catching strays here, man. Is it worth the millions of dollars you're paying to be part of this train wreck?
I told you I would have broken. I would have broken that I would have told them, look, we didn't know that you clowns were going bankrupt. I want out.
Yeah, so you're going bankrupt and your app doesn't work and people are mad at us because we put our name on all this stuff.
It's like if someone came and paid you to be a Mackey and then turned into a complete embarrassment. You'd be like, you can't use my name. I'm just licensing my name to you.
Some people say that you just told the story of my family embarrassed of me over the past.
That's actually Maya Mackey. Years. That's actually who he's just yelling at Maya for licensing his name to Maya after she, does something naughty.
Stop pooping on the sidewalk.
Yeah,
people walk there, okay?
Come on.
Whore in the house.
All right, that's a wrap on Flagrant Howls here today. Your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.